Hello guys, welcome to Fiction Quest. So in this video, we will see, what if Naruto awakened power of Future Sight Observation Haki and fell in love with Viola? If you enjoy these kinds of stories, don't forget to show us some love by hitting the like button and subscribing to the channel. Your support means the world to us. Now, let's start the story. Cha, Pter 1. Echoes of tomorrow. The world shifted beneath Naruto Uzumaki's feet. Not in the physical sense. The polished marble floor of the Land of Iron's diplomatic hall remained solid, but in that peculiar, disorienting way that had been happening with increasing frequency over the past month. Colors intensified to painful brightness, sounds warped into echoing distortions, and time itself seemed to stutter forward in fragmented bursts. The ambassador from the Land of Lightning will trip on the third step. Her aide will lunge forward. The hidden Senbon in her hairpin will fly toward the Wind Daimyo's throat. Naruto blinked, and reality snapped back into focus. The ambassador, a tall, silver-haired woman in formal robes, was only now approaching the steps to the central podium, her aide 2 paces behind. Everything exactly as he had just, remembered, imagined, foreseen. The thundering of his heartbeat filled his ears as he subtly shifted his weight, fingers brushing against the speck. Iolized kunai hidden beneath his formal orange and black diplomatic attire. Being appointed as Konoha's diplomatic envoy had been Kakashi's idea. You need to learn politics if you're ever going to be Hokage. And people trust you after the war, but Naruto had never anticipated that his most vital contribution would come from these strange episodes. Extend the warmest greetings from the Raikage. The ambassador was saying as she reached the second step. Naruto's body moved before his mind could fully process his actions. A flash of orange blurred across the chamber as he pushed off with chakra-enhanced speed. His shoulder collided with the aide, disrupting the man's position just as the ambassador's foot caught on the step. She stumbled, but instead of her aide lunging forward to help her, Naruto was there, steadying her with one hand while the other snatched the ornate hairpin as it dislodged from her elaborate coiffure. "Careful there," he said with a disarming smile that didn't reach his suddenly cold blue eyes. These old steps can be tricky. The aide's face drained of color as Naruto's fingers closed around the hairpin, thumb deliberately pressing a hidden mechanism that tended a needle-thin Senbon from its decorative end. The poison glistening on its tip caught the light. "Interesting accessory," Naruto continued, voice dropping to a dangerous register that only the ambassador and her aide could hear. "Would be a shame if something like this accidentally fell and struck someone important, wouldn't it?" The diplomatic hall continued functioning around them, dignitaries and guards oblivious to the assassination attempt that had been thwarted before it even began. The ambassador's eyes widened fractionally, not with guilt, Naruto noted, but with genuine shock as she glanced between the hairpin and her aide. "I don't understand," she whispered. "That was a gift from your aide," Naruto finished, his grip tightening on the man's arm when he detected the subtle tensing of muscles that preceded escape. "Who I'm guessing isn't actually from the Land of Lightning at all." The imposter's expression hardened. "How could you possibly?" "Because I saw it happen before it did," Naruto interrupted, the truth spilling out before he could consider the implications. The admission startled even him. He hadn't told anyone about these episodes, not even Sakura or Kakashi. 2 Anbu materialized beside them, responding to Naruto's subtle chakra flare. "Take him for questioning," Naruto instructed quietly. "And have someone analyze this poison. The ambassador is innocent. She was being used." As the guards escorted the would-be assassin away with characteristic efficiency, the ambassador clutched Naruto's sleeve. "Thank you," she breathed. "I was told to wear that hairpin as a sign of respect to our hosts. I never imagined." Naruto nodded, the tension in his shoulders easing slightly. "The summit continues. Say nothing of this for now." As the ambassador composed herself and proceeded with her address, -1 treacherous hairpin, Naruto retreated to his position near the Fire Daimyo's delegation. His head throbbed with the beginnings of another migraine. The now familiar aftereffect of these strange episodes of foresight. "That was impressively subtle," came a low voice beside him. "Almost out of character for you." Shikamaru Nara, his assigned advisory attaché for diplomatic missions, studied him with narrowed eyes that missed nothing. The Nara genius had been watching the entire exchange from across the room. I can be subtle when it counts, Naruto replied, keeping his expression neutral despite the intensifying pain behind his eyes. You moved before he did, Shikamaru observed. Before she even tripped, almost as if, we should discuss this later, Naruto interrupted, subtly inclining his head toward the numerous foreign dignitaries within earshot. Shikamaru's calculating gaze lingered for a moment longer before he nodded. Troublesome as always, he muttered. But the affection in his tone took any sting from the words. The delegate from the coastal regions is approaching. The one who requested a private audience. Naruto turned to see a woman making her way toward them through the crowd. She moved with the fluid grace of someone intimately familiar with their body's capabilities, a fighter's awareness wrapped in diplomatic finery. Her deep blue formal kimono was adorned with patterns of swirling water and stylized seashells, marking her as a representative from one of the island nations beyond the land of water. Her most striking feature, however, was her eyes, pale silver, almost white, but lacking the distinctive veins and pupils of the Hyuga clan's Byakugan. Uzumaki-san, she greeted with a formal bow that nagged to convey respect without subservience. I am Amaya Shimizu, representative of the Nanami archipelago. Your intervention just now was most impressive. Just doing my job, Naruto replied. Th practiced humility that still felt strange on his tongue. 2 years of diplomatic service had taught him when to suppress his natural exuberance. How can I help the Nanami archipelago today? A's silver eyes assessed him with unsettling directness. Perhaps somewhere more private. What I have to discuss concerns matters of mutual security, specifically, a pattern of disappearances among those with unique sensory capabilities. A chill ran down Naruto's spine that had nothing to do with the room's temperature. Before he could respond, however, the familiar disorientation washed over him again. The eastern wall will explode inward. A vortex of swirling energy will appear. A woman with black hair and a scar below her eye will emerge, disoriented and combative. Naruto staggered slightly, earning concerned looks from both Shikamaru and Amaya. Eastern wall, he managed to say, already moving. Everyone back. His warning came barely 3 seconds before reality caught up with his vision. The ornate eastern wall of the diplomatic chamber shuddered, stone and wood warping inward as though being pulled toward a central point. The air itself seemed to tear open, revealing a swirling vortex of purple-blue energy that crackled with electricity. Dignitaries scattered in panic as security forces moved to protect their charges. From within the vortex, a figure emerged, exactly as Naruto had foreseen. A woman with long black hair tumbled through, landing in a defensive crouch. Her clothing was unlike anything in the 5 great nations, a short dress with playing card symbols, long gloves, and heeled boots. A thin scar ran beneath her right eye, which darted around the room with calculated assessment. Where am I? She demanded in accented but understandable common language. What is this place? Guards surrounded her immediately, weapons drawn. The woman's eyes narrowed, her stance shifting subtly into what Naruto recognized as a combat position. Wait, he called out, pushing through the guards. Something about the dimensional tear reminded him of Kagaya's abilities during the war, impossible, and yet undeniably real. Lower your weapons. She's disoriented, not hostile. You don't know that. One of the samurai guards growled, but Naruto met the mysterious woman's gaze directly. My name is Naruto Uzumaki, diplomat of Konohagakure. You've come through some kind of portal or dimensional rift. This is the land of iron, in the middle of a diplomatic summit. The woman's posture remained tense, but her eyes, sharp and intelligent, focused on the swirling vortex as it began to contract behind her. Another world, she murmured, more to herself than to the room. Just as he warned might happen. Her attention snapped back to Naruto. I am Viola, also called Violet, former officer of Dressrosa. I mean no harm, but I will defend myself if threatened. The conviction in her voice brooked no argument, and Naruto found himself believing her immediately. Before he could respond, however, the vortex behind her pulsed violently. Instinctively, he lunged forward, tackling Viola out of the way as a blast of energy erupted from the collapsing portal, carving a smoking groove into the marble floor where she had been standing moments before. They rolled together, Naruto shielding her with his body as debris rained down around them. The portal imploded with a thunderous crack, leaving nothing but scorched stone and the acrid smell of electrical discharge. "You saw that coming," Viola said as they disentangled themselves. "It wasn't a question." "I did," Naruto admitted, helping her to her feet. Somehow, her eyes widened fractionally. "Observation Haki," she whispered. "You possess it too." Before Naruto could ask what she meant, Shikamaru was beside them. His expression tight with controlled concern. "We need to clear the area and convene an emergency session," he said. "Interdimensional visitors tend to complicate diplomatic relations. I'll take responsibility for her," Naruto said firmly. "There's something important happening here, Shikamaru. I can feel it." The Nara genius sighed with familiar resignation. "Troublesome," he muttered. "Fine, I'll handle the diplomats. You handle our unexpected guest." As chaos erupted around them, dignitaries demanding explanations, security forces establishing perimeters, medics tending to those with minor injuries from the blast, Naruto led Viola to a relatively quiet alcove. Amaya Shimizu followed, her silver eyes fixed on the dimensional visitor with undisguised interest. "You mentioned observation Haki," Naruto said once they had a moment of privacy. "What is that exactly? And how did you know I have it?" Viola studied him with renewed intensity. "In my world, Haki is a power that exists within all living beings. Observation Haki specifically allows one to sense the presence, emotions, and intentions of others. At its highest level, called Future Sight, it permits glimpses of immediate future events." Her head tilted slightly. "You moved before the explosion happened." Classic Future Sight reaction. "That's what's been happening to me," Naruto breathed, the revelation settling like a weight and a relief simultaneously. "For weeks now, I've been seeing things seconds before they occur. It's disorienting, gives me terrible headaches, and I can't control when it happens." Rained observation Haki can be dangerous to the user, Viola agreed. "In my world, those with the aptitude train for years to master it." Amaya cleared her throat. "Forgive my intrusion, but this, sounds remarkably similar to what we call echolocation in my homeland. The ability to perceive events beyond normal sensory range. You have such abilities?" Viola asked sharply. Instead of answering directly, Amaya closed her silver eyes. Her fingers formed an unfamiliar seal, and she remained perfectly still for 3 seconds before speaking. "3 guards are approaching from the corridor to our right. The first is limping slightly from an old injury. The second is concerned about his daughter's illness. The third is carrying a message scroll marked with the Land of Earth's seal." As if on cue, 3 guards rounded the corner exactly as she had described. Naruto's eyes widened as he detected the limp in the first guard's gait and glimpsed the scroll tucked into the third guard's belt. "How?" "Sound waves," Amaya explained simply. "I can project and interpret them beyond normal human range. My clan specializes in sensory perception through acoustic mapping." Naruto glanced between the 2 women, his mind racing. "And you mentioned disappearances of people with sensory abilities," he said to Amaya. "That can't be coincidence." "It is not," she confirmed grimly. "Over the past 6 months, 12 individuals with rare perceptive abilities have vanished from the coastal regions, including 3 members of my own clan." Viola's expression hardened. "In the chaos before I was displaced, similar abductions were occurring in Dressrosa. Warriors with advanced observation Haki were being targeted." The implications sent a chill down Naruto's spine. Someone is collecting people with these abilities. "But why?" "Power," Amaya said simply. "Imagine an individual or organization with access to every form of sensory perception. They would be virtually impossible to surprise, to ambush, to keep secrets from. We need to report this to Kakashi-sensei immediately," Naruto decided, referring to the 6th Hokage. "And I need to learn to control these abilities before they control me." "I can help with that," Viola offered. "If I'm to be stranded in this world for the foreseeable future, I might as well make myself useful." Before Naruto could respond, the familiar disorientation swept over him again. Stronger than before. This time, however, the vision wasn't of an immediate threat but of a location, the forests outside the Land of Iron's diplomatic compound. He saw a small camp. Hidden figures in dark clothing, and equipment he didn't recognize pointed toward the building. When the vision cleared, he found both women watching him intently. "You saw something," Viola stated. Naruto nodded, fighting through the pounding headache that followed. "A camp in the forest north of here. People watching the compound with strange equipment. Doesn't match any shinobi surveillance tech I've seen before. We should investigate," Amaya suggested, adjusting the ornate pins in her elaborate updo, pins that Naruto now suspected might serve more practical purposes than mere decoration. "Agreed," Viola said, straightening her gloves. "If these are the same individuals targeting sensory-gifted people in multiple worlds, confronting them directly may provide answers." "Hold on," Naruto cautioned, surprised by their immediate readiness for potential combat. "We can't just leave in the middle of a diplomatic incident." Viola raised an eyebrow. "Can your shadow-manipulating friend not handle the diplomats? This threat seems rather more pressing than soothing ruffled feathers." "Besides," Amaya added with a slight smile that transformed her formal demeanor, "I'm a diplomat too. Technically, this qualifies as a diplomatic excursion between our nations." Naruto couldn't help but grin at their reasoning. "Fine, but we observe only unless provoked. And we need to be back before the emergency session Shikamaru's arranging." As they slipped away from the compound, Naruto using the confusion of the dimensional incident as cover, he found himself strangely comfortable with these two formidable women. Viola moved with the practiced stealth of someone accustomed to clandestine operations, while Amaya demonstrated surprising agility for a diplomat, easily keeping pace through the snowy landscape. They approached the location from Naruto's vision with careful precision, maintaining communication through subtle hand signals that, remarkably, all three seemed to understand despite their different backgrounds. Naruto took point, his enhanced senses, both natural and the newly acknowledged Haki, scanning for threats. The camp was exactly where and how he had foreseen it. A small clearing in the dense forest, 3 figures in white camouflage gear, and sophisticated equipment aimed toward the diplomatic compound. What he hadn't seen in his vision, however, was the 4th figure approaching the camp from the opposite direction. A woman with short, dark red hair moved through the snow with the silent precision of a trained shinobi. Her attire marked her as a medical specialist, the modified uniform once associated with Otogakur, the hidden sound village. Naruto tensed, memories of Orochimaru's followers still raw even years after the war. "Another player," Viola murmured beside him. "Her chakra signature is unusual." Naruto shot her a surprised look. "You can sense chakra." "Not as you do," she replied. "But my glare fruit abilities allow me to see through objects and perceive energy flows. Your world's chakra is similar enough to my world's Haki that I can interpret it with some concentration." "She's not with them," Amaya whispered, her head tilted in that distinctive listening posture. "Her heartbeat is elevated. She's observing them just as we are." The red-haired woman suddenly stiffened, her head turning fractionally toward their position. Without warning, she vanished in a blur of movement. She sensed us, Naruto realized, just as his future sight flared again. A senbon will pierce the tree beside his ear. The woman will appear behind Amaya, a kunai at her throat. "You're interrupting my investigation," she'll say. Reality caught up with his perception. Naruto caught the senbon mid-air as it flew toward him, while Simu Aeneasly creating a shadow clone that intercepted the woman before she could reach Amaya. The clone grappled with the redhead, both tumbling into the snow before separating and squaring off. "You're interrupting my investigation," the woman said, exactly as Naruto had foreseen, though her kunai was now pointed at his clone rather than at Amaya's throat. "We could say the same to you," Naruto replied, stepping into view with the senbon still held between his fingers. "Who are you, and what's your interest in those surveillance operatives?" The woman's eyes, a striking amber color, narrowed as she assessed the three of them. Recognition flickered across her features as she focused on Naruto. "The hero of the Fourth War," she said flatly. Unexpected, her gaze shifted to Viola and Amaya. "An interesting company you keep." "You didn't answer my question," Naruto pressed. After a moment's calculation, the woman lowered her kunai fractionally. "Kaori Takahashi, former medical researcher from Otogakur. Currently unaffiliated. Sound Village," Naruto noted, tension creeping into his voice. "Orochimaru's territory. Former territory," Kaori corrected sharply. And I never shared his more extreme methodologies. My research was focused on chakra perception and medical applications. Convenient expertise, given recent events, Amaya observed coolly. Kaori's expression tightened. Quote, if you're referring to the abductions of individuals with sensory abilities, that's precisely what I'm investigating. Those men, she nodded toward the surveillance camp, are scouts for the group responsible. They're identifying targets with perceptive capabilities. How do you know this? Viola demanded. Because they captured 3 of my research subjects 6 months ago, Kaori replied, bitterness seeping into her tone. People under my protection. I've been tracking their operations since then. The sincerity in her voice was unmistakable, even without Naruto's enhanced perception. He dismissed his shadow clone with a gesture. What have you learned about them? He asked, his tone softening slightly. They call themselves the sensory hunters, Kaori explained, visibly relaxing as hostilities eased. They're not affiliated with any village or nation, more like a private research organization with substantial resources. They're led by a former Anbu researcher codenamed Spectre, Thog. I've heard the name Takashi Kuroda mentioned. Their objective, Amaya pressed. They believe that by harvesting and combining various sensory abilities, they can create the ultimate perceptive weapon, a jutsu or device that would make its wielder omniscient on the battlefield. Kaori's expression darkened. They're not above abduction, experimentation, or worse to achieve this goal. Naruto's stomach twisted at the implications. We need to capture one of these scouts, bring them in for questioning. We also need to not alert their entire organization that we're onto them, Kaori countered. I've been tracking this cell for weeks, waiting for them to lead me to their base of operations. The tension between immediate action and strategic patience hung in the air until Viola broke the silence. We can achieve both objectives, she said thoughtfully. In my world, I once served as head of a kingdom's intelligence division. With my abilities, I can extract information from one scout while making him believe nothing happened. The others will continue their operation none the wiser. Naruto studied her with newfound appreciation. You can do that, Viola nodded. My glare rs allow me to see memories as clearly as physical objects. Combined with certain interrogation techniques I learned in my more morally ambiguous days, I can navigate a subject's mind without leaving traces. That's both impressive and terrifying, Naruto admitted. Most effective abilities are both, Amaya noted pragmatically. The question is, do we trust each other enough for this operation? The 4 of them exchanged measured looks. They were strangers brought together by circumstance and shared concerns, each with their own objectives and histories. Trust was a luxury they hadn't earned from each other yet. I trust actions more than words, Naruto finally said. Let's see how we work together on this, then decide. The plan they devised was elegant in its simplicity. Amaya's her echolocation ability to map the scouts, positions and patrol patterns. Kaori prepared a specialized sedative that would render a target unconscious without alerting his companions. Naruto Ted shadow clones to establish a perimeter and prevent escape. And Viola prepared to extract information once they captured a scout. The operation went flawlessly until the moment it didn't. They had successfully separated one scout from his companions and were in the process of subduing him when Naruto's future sight activated again. The dimensional rift will reappear, larger than before. Energy, signatures identical to the surveillance equipment will emanate from within. A voice will call out, Extraction Team Bravo, target the Uzumaki and the Dressrosa woman. Priority Alpha, abort, Naruto shouted, just as reality caught up with his vision. The air 20 feet from their position tore open, the same purple-blue vortex from earlier expanding rapidly. The scout they'd been targeting smiled coldly despite his predicament. Right on schedule, he said as the other 2 scouts activated devices on their wrists. You've saved us the trouble of separating you from the diplomatic herd, Uzumaki. From within the vortex, 6 figures emerged, combat specialists in form-fitting tactical gear with strange devices mounted on their forearms and temples. Unlike the confused arrival of Viola, these individuals moved with precise coordination and clear purpose. Extraction Team Bravo, target the Uzumaki and the Dressrosa woman. Priority Alpha, called their leader, exactly as Naruto had foreseen. They can create these portals deliberately, Viola realized, dropping into a combat stance. This isn't random dimensional slippage, it's targeted transportation. How do they know who you are? Naruto demanded, already forming the cross-shaped hand seal for his shadow clone jutsu. The same way they know who you are, Kaori responded grimly, drawing specialized kunai from hidden sheaths. They've been watching, and now they're harvesting. Not today, they're not, Amaya declared, her hands forming rapid seals. Sound style. Resonance disruption. A high-pitched tone, just at the edge of human hearing, emanated from her position. The advancing extraction team staggered, their coordinated movements faltering as the sound interfered with their equilibrium. Naruto seized the opening. Multi-shadow clone jutsu. 20 perfect copies of himself materialized, surrounding the extraction team. The original Naruto channeled chakra into his palm, the familiar spiraling sphere of the Rasengan forming with practiced ease. The battle erupted with coordinated fury from both sides. The extraction team recovered quickly from Amaya's sonic attack, deploying weapons and techniques Naruto had never encountered. One fired a projectile that expanded into an energy net, capturing 3 of his shadow clones and dispelling them instantly. Another activated a device that created localized gravity distortions, making movement difficult within its radius. Viola proved herself a formidable combatant despite being in an unfamiliar world. Her fighting style, elegant, precise, and lethal, incorporate. Kicks enhanced with some form of energy that Naruto recognized as similar to chakra but fundamentally different. Armament Haki, she called it when he asked between exchanging blows with their attackers. Kaori's medical background belied her combat capabilities. She wielded chakra scalpels with surgical precision, targeting nerve clusters and chakra points with devastating effectiveness. Form. Sound ninja weren't known for peaceful research methods, she explained dryly after incapacitating one attacker with a series of lightning-fast strikes. Amaya's abilities proved uniquely suited to countering the extraction team's technology. Her sound-based jutsu disrupted their communications and interfered with their dimensional devices, preventing them from opening another portal to escape. Working together, they gradually gained the upper hand. Naruto's clones herded the attackers into a tightening circle while the real Naruto coordinated their efforts with unexpected tactical acumen. Bind the leader, he instructed as they subdued the final combatants. Viola, can you extract information quickly? We don't know if they have reinforcements coming. Viola nodded, approaching the captured team leader. She placed her hands on either side of his head, her eyes glowing with an inner light as she activated her ability. I can see fragments. Their base is mobile, currently in a coastal region. They're collecting subjects with different sensory abilities for a convergence ritual of some kind. Her expression tightened. There's another team targeting someone in Konoha right now. Someone with an ability they call memory sight. Konoha. Naruto's blood ran cold. We need to get back immediately. The diplomatic summit. Amaya began. We'll have to continue without me, Naruto cut in. If they're targeting Konoha, that takes priority. Kaori studied the captured extraction team with clinical detachment. We should take at least one for further interrogation. Their technology alone is worth investigating. Agreed, Viola said. The leader knows the most. The others are essentially foot soldiers with limited information. As they secured their prisoner and prepared to return to the diplomatic compound, Naruto found his gaze drawn to the 3 women who had fought alongside him. Strangers hours ago, now united by common purpose and shared danger. Each possessed unique abilities that complemented his own in unexpected ways. Each had demonstrated courage and competence that earned his respect. And each, he realized with a sudden clarity that had nothing to do with future sight, represented a different facet of the challenge ahead. Viola with her otherworldly perspective and similar abilities. Amaya with her diplomatic connections and complementary sensory techniques. Kaori with her scientific knowledge and morally complex past. The journey back to the compound was tense with unspoken questions and the weight of their discovery. The sensory hunters weren't just abducting individuals with perceptive abilities, they were coordinating across dimensions, wielding technology beyond current shinobi understanding, and specifically targeting Naruto and Viola. Why us? Naruto wondered aloud as the diplomatic compound came into view. What makes our abilities so special to them? Future perception is the rarest and most powerful form of sensory ability, Kaori explained. In all my research, I've only documented 3 cases of true precognition, and none as immediate and accurate as what you demonstrated today. And in my world, Viola added, advanced observation haki with future sight is equally rare. Perhaps a dozen individuals possess it among millions. If they're building some kind of composite sensory weapon, Amaya reasoned, then precognitive abilities would be the crown jewel of such a creation. Their discussion halted abruptly as they reached the compound perimeter. Signs of battle marred the pristine diplomatic grounds, scorched earth, shattered windows, and the distinctive damage pattern of high-level combat. We're too late, Naruto realized, rushing forward with the others close behind. Inside, they found Shikamaru coordinating a response team. His normally lazy demeanor replaced by sharp focus. He looked up as Naruto entered, relief briefly crossing his features. Perfect timing, he said sarcastically. We just repel an attack by unknown assailants with strange technology. They were specifically asking about you before they started fighting. The sensory hunters, Naruto confirmed grimly. They attacked us in the forest too. Did everyone make it out okay? Minor injuries only, Shikamaru reported. But the summit's been postponed pending security reassessment. The delegates are returning to their nations until further notice. That's actually convenient, Naruto said. I need to return to Konoha immediately. Viola extracted information suggesting they're targeting someone there next. Shikamaru's gaze traveled over the 3 women accompanying Naruto, lingering on their battle-worn appearance and the bound prisoner they'd brought. His sigh was equal parts resignation and amusement. Only you could turn a diplomatic summit into an interdimensional incident complete with new allies and a prisoner of war, he remarked. Troublesome doesn't begin to cover it. I'll explain everything on the way back to the village, Naruto promised. But we need to move quickly. As they made preparations for immediate departure, Naruto found himself drawn to a quiet corner of the compound where he could address the persistent headache that had been building throughout the day. The repeated use of his newfound future sight, combined with the stress of combat and diplomatic chaos, had taken its toll. He was surprised when a cup of steaming tea appeared before him, held in Viola's elegant hand. For the headache, she said simply. Observation haki strains the mind and body until you build tolerance. This blend helps. Naruto accepted the cup gratefully. Thanks. How did you know I was in pain? I can literally see the pressure building in your cranial blood vessels, she replied with a small smile. One of the less combat-oriented uses of my abilities. As he sipped the surprisingly effective tea, Naruto studied the dimensional visitor more carefully. Beyond her combat prowess and intelligence-gathering abilities, there was a dignity to her bearing that spoke of hardship overcome and wisdom hard won. You're handling being stranded in another dimension remarkably well, he observed. Viola's expression turned contemplative. This isn't my first experience with having my world turned upside down. Before I became an intelligence officer, I was a princess. Before that, a revolutionary. Then a reluctant subordinate to a tyrant. Life has taught me adaptability if nothing else. Princess to revolutionary to spy. That's quite a journey, says the orphaned village pariah who became a war hero and is now on track to lead his nation, she countered with surprising insight. Naruto's eyebrows rose. How did you? I didn't read your memories without permission, she assured him. Quote, but news of your accomplishments reached even my world through interdimensional whispers. The sensory hunters aren't the only ones studying the boundaries between realities. Their conversation was interrupted by Amaya's approach. The transport is ready, she announced. Your shadow manipulator friend has arranged for high-speed travel back to Konoha. And I've secured our prisoner for safe transport, Kaori added, joining them. Though I'd feel better if we had proper containment facilities for someone with his technological advantages. Naruto drained the last of his tea, the headache already receding. Then let's not waste any more time. If they're targeting someone in Konoha with this memory sight ability, we need to locate and protect them before the hunters strike. As they departed the land of iron, Naruto found himself at the center of an unlikely alliance, an interdimensional warrior, a foreign diplomat with sound-based abilities, and a former enemy scientist, all united why the threat of the sensory hunters and their mysterious leader, Takashi Kuroda. The snow-covered mountains gave way to forests as they traveled south toward the land of fire. Throughout the journey, Viola continued instructing Naruto on the fundamentals of controlling his future sight, drawing parallels between Haki and chakra that helped him conceptualize the new ability. Observation Haki is, at its core, about extending your consciousness beyond your physical body, she explained during a brief rest. Your chakra already does this to some extent, but Haki requires a different kind of focus. Less about power and more about perception. Like Sage Mode, Naruto realized, referring to the natural energy technique he had mastered years earlier. Except instead of sensing current energy, you're sensing future possibilities. Precisely, Viola confirmed. The future isn't fixed, it's a river with countless branching streams. Future sight allows you to perceive the most probable course, based on current conditions and intentions. That's why it gives me such terrible headaches, Naruto groaned. I'm essentially forcing my brain to process information that hasn't happened yet. Your mind will adapt, she assured him. Mine did, though it took months of dedicated practice. Their arrival in Konoha 3 days later caused an immediate stir. The presence of 3 unknown women, one with obvious foreign origins, accompanying Naruto, plus a bound prisoner with strange technology, prompted immediate security protocols. They were escorted directly to the Hokage's office, where Kakashi Hatake awaited them with his characteristic blend of casual posture and sharp attention. I sent you to a diplomatic summit, the 6th Hokage remarked dryly from behind his desk. You return with 3 new allies, an interdimensional crisis, and warnings of an imminent attack on our village. Some might call that overachieving, even for you, Naruto. Despite the gravity of the situation, Naruto couldn't help grinning at his former sensei. Just keeping things interesting, Kakashi-sensei. After introducing his companions and explaining the situation in detail, including his developing future sight abilities, Naruto watched Kakashi absorb the information with the calculated patience that had served him well as Hokage. This memory sight ability, Kakashi finally said. Any idea who in the village might possess it? None, Naruto admitted. I've never heard of such an ability before. I have, came a quiet voice from the doorway. They turned to see Hinata Hyuga standing there, her PR essence commanding despite her gentle demeanor. The years since the war had transformed the once shy heiress into a confident clan leader, though she still carried herself with characteristic grace. Her lavender eyes, the distinctive Byakugan of her clan, moved over the assembled group before settling on Naruto with a warmth that transcended professional interest. Hinata, Naruto greeted, genuine pleasure lighting his features. What do you know about memory sight? It's an obscure bloodline limit not seen in generations, she explained, entering the room fully. Similar to the Sharingan's ability to copy techniques, but focused on experiential memories instead. The user can not only see others' memories but temporarily experience and utilize skills they've witnessed. That would be invaluable for this composite sensory weapon the hunters are developing, Kaori observed. A perfect complementary ability to future sight. One sees what will happen, the other draws on all past experiences. Do you know who has this ability? Viola asked directly. Hinata nodded. There's a tea house owner in the Eastern District. Rei Nakamura. Her family has kept the ability secret for generations, but the Hyuga clan keeps records of all bloodline limits, even dormant ones. A tea house owner, Naruto repeated incredulously. Not a shinobi. Not everyone with special abilities chooses the shinobi path, Hinata reminded him gently. Some prefer quieter lives. We need to find her immediately, Amaya urged. If the hunters have targeted her specifically, she's in grave danger. Agreed, Kakashi said, rising from his desk. Naruto, take your team and locate Rei Nakamura. Bring her to Anbu headquarters for protection. I'll coordinate village defense in case this is a larger operation than we anticipate. As they prepared to depart, Hinata stepped closer to Naruto. These new abilities you're developing, she said quietly. Are they causing you pain? Your chakra network appears strained. The concern in her voice warmed him. Despite the years and changes in both their lives, Hinata's care remained a constant he valued deeply. Some headaches, he admitted. But I'm learning to control it. I'd like to examine your chakra pathways more thoroughly when this crisis is addressed, she offered. The Byakugan might provide insights that could help you integrate this new ability more comfortably. I'd appreciate that, Naruto replied sincerely. Their gazes held for a moment longer than strictly necessary, an unspoken current of connection flowing between them. Then Naruto turned to his assembled team. Let's move. Eastern District Tea House, finding Rei Nakamura before the hunters do. The tea house was exactly what one would expect of a traditional Konoha establishment, serene, meticulously maintained, and completely ordinary at first glance. Named, Memories Steeped, it occupied a corner location with excellent sightlines in all directions, which Naruto now recognized as a subtle security measure rather than coincidental architecture. Inside, the atmosphere was peaceful, the gentle burble of water, the delicate fragrance of premium teas, and the soft murmur of afternoon customers creating an ambiance of tranquility. Behind the serving counter stood a woman in her early 30s with unremarkable features save for her eyes, deep amber with flecks of gold that seemed to catch and hold light in unusual ways. Rei Nakamura looked up as they entered, her expression shifting from professional welcome to wary recognition as she took in Naruto's official attire and serious expression. Without a word, she nodded to an assistant and guided them to a private room at the back of the establishment. "You've come about the strange people watching my shop," she said once the door closed behind them. Not a question, but a statement of fact. Naruto blinked in surprise. "You know about them. I may not be a shinobi, Uzumaki-san, but I'm not unobservant," Rei replied with quiet dignity. "3 individuals with foreign technology have been monitoring my movements for the past week. I reported it to the civilian police, but..." She shrugged slightly. "They saw nothing suspicious about visitors frequenting a tea house. They're called the sensory hunters," Naruto explained quickly. "And they're targeting people with special perceptive abilities, including something called memory sight." If he expected shock or denial, Rei disappointed him. She merely sighed, removing the ornamental pin from her simple updo and allowing her light brown hair to fall to her shoulders, a gesture that somehow made her seem both more vulnerable and more authentic. "So my family's secret isn't as well kept as we'd hoped," she said. "Though I suppose the Hyuga would know." Her gaze moved to Hinata with knowing recognition. "You're in danger," Viola stated bluntly. "These hunters have already attempted to abduct both Naruto and myself for our perceptive abilities. You're next on their list. And you're offering protection, I assume." "We're offering more than that," Naruto said. "We're building a coalition to stop them permanently. Your ability, your knowledge, could be crucial." Rei studied each of them in turn, her gaze lingering in a way that made Naruto wonder if she was using her memory sight to assess them. Finally, she nodded. "I'll need 10 minutes to secure the shop and pack essentials," she said, rising gracefully. "My ability isn't combat-oriented, but I assure you, I won't be a burden." As she left to make preparations, Naruto turned to his companions. "We should establish a perimeter. If they've been watching her, they might move once they realize we've made contact." They had just taken up positions around the tea house when Naruto's future sight activated again, more controlled this time. Less disorienting as he applied Viola's training techniques. 3 figures will materialize on the rooftop opposite the tea house. Energy weapons will target the main entrance. Rei will emerge with a small travel bag. The lead hunter will say, "Primary target acquired. Secondary target Uzumaki present as well. Initiating capture protocol. Rooftop. Opposite building." Naruto called out, "Already moving." "They're here." Reality aligned with his vision moments later. 3 sensory hunters appeared on the designated rooftop, their weapons trained on the Tei. A house entrance just as Rei emerged with her travel bag. The lead hunter raised a communication device to his mouth. "Primary target acquired. Secondary target Uzumaki present as well. Initiating capture protocol." What happened next, however, diverged from Naruto's vision in a way he hadn't anticipated. Instead of fleeing or freezing, Rei Nakamura set down her bag calmly and formed a series of and seals that Naruto recognized with shock. They were identical to a specialized Anbu containment technique that only a handful of operatives knew. "Memory release. Reflected experience," she announced, her voice carrying unexpected authority. A pulse of chakra emanated from her position, distorting the air like heat waves over desert sand. The hunters staggered as if physically struck, their coordinated movements suddenly clumsy and disoriented. "I've temporarily disrupted their muscle memory," Rei explained as Naruto and the others stared in amazement. Anyone within range will find their bow. Dai responding as if they've never trained in combat before. It won't last long. Long enough, Viola said with admiration, already moving to intercept the disoriented hunters. The ensuing skirmish was brief but intense. Despite their technological advantages, the hunters couldn't compensate for their suddenly incooperative bodies. Naruto's shadow clones, Viola's precise strikes, Hinata's gentle fist techniques, Amaya's sound jutsu, and Kaori's medical ninjutsu made short work of the attackers. As they secured the captured hunters for interrogation, Naruto turned to Rei with newfound respect. That was impressive. I thought you said your ability wasn't combat-oriented. It typically isn't, she replied with a small smile. But over the years, I've witnessed many shinobi techniques through serving tea to Konoha's finest. Memory sight allows me to not only recall but temporarily utilize what I've seen. Her expression sobered. Though unlike your shadow clones or the Hyuga's gentle fist, my borrowed techniques fade quickly and require significant chakra. Still, Amaya observed, a remarkably versatile ability. I understand why the hunters prioritized you. As they escorted Rei and their new prisoners back to Anbu headquarters, Naruto found himself reflecting on the day's developments. In less than a week, his life had transformed completely, from diplomatic envoy to wielder of interdimensional future sight. From solo operative to leader of a uniquely skilled team. And at the center of it all, a mystery that spanned worlds. Who was Takashi Kuroda? What was his ultimate objective with his composite sensory weapon? And how many more people with special perceptive abilities would he target before they could stop him? The answers, Naruto suspected, lay somewhere in the IATE future, a future he was now beginning to perceive with increasing clarity, one vision at a time. In Anbu headquarters, as Ibiki Morino prepared to interrogate their captives, Naruto gathered his UN likely allies in a secure briefing room. Viola, with her interdimensional perspective and combat prowess. Amaya, with her diplomatic connections and sound-based abilities. Kaori, with her scientific knowledge and morally complex past. Hinata, with her Byakugan mastery and unwavering support. And now Rei, with her memory sight and surprising adaptability. We've identified the threat and secured immediate targets, Naruto summarized. But this is just the beginning. The sensory hunters have resources, technology, and reach beyond anything we've encountered before. And their leader remains at large, Viola added. This Takashi Kuroda clearly has a larger objective than simply collecting abilities. Whatever it is, Naruto said with quiet determination, we'll face it together. Each of us brings something unique to this fight. Perspectives and abilities that complement each other in ways our enemy can't anticipate. As the others nodded in agreement, Naruto felt a curious sensation. He had nothing to do with future sight, a certainty that these 5 women, brought into his life through crisis and circumstance, would become more important to him than he could possibly imagine. Each connection distinct, each relationship unique, each bond forged in the crucible of shared purpose and mutual respect. The future remained uncertain, filled with challenges and dangers yet to be revealed. But for perhaps the first time since his strange visions began, Naruto welcomed the uncertainty, not as a threat, but as a path forward, illuminated by newfound allies and abilities that would guide him through whatever lay ahead. Chapter 1 and Chapter 2. Clarity in chaos. Dawn painted Konoha's eastern sky in watercolor strokes of amber and rose. Naruto sat cross-legged atop the Hokage monument, eyes closed, breathing measured. The stone beneath him still held night's coolness while morning light warmed his face, a sensory contrast that anchored him in the moment. Focus on the boundary between what is and what will be, Viola instructed, her voice carrying the musical accent of Dressrosa. She knelt opposite him, dark hair stirring in the gentle breeze. Future sight is not about forcing visions to come, but opening yourself to receive them. That's the opposite of how I usually do things, Naruto admitted with a wry smile, eyes still closed. I'm more of a charge in with everything you've got kind of shinobi. Which is precisely why you're experiencing such severe backlash when visions come, she observed. You're resisting the natural flow of observation haki. Like trying to redirect a river with your bare hands instead of guiding its course. For 5 days now, they had met at dawn for these training sessions. 5 days since the sensory hunters' failed attempt to capture Rei Nakamura. 5 days of diplomatic chaos as reports of dimensional rifts multiplied across the 5 great nations. Naruto inhaled deeply, attempting to implement Viola's guidance. Less force, more reception. Less command, more invitation. Against his natural instincts, he loosened his mental grip, and was immediately rewarded with the familiar shift in perception. A messenger hawk will arrive from the south. The scroll it carries bears the water daimyo's seal. Its message: dimensional anomaly detected in coastal waters. Request immediate consultation with the hero of the Fourth War. The vision ended without the crippling headache that had accompanied previous episodes. Naruto opened his eyes, meeting Viola's knowing gaze. "You saw something," she stated. He nodded. "A messenger hawk from the land of water. It's coming with a request for me specifically." Viola's lips curved in satisfaction. "And no pain this time." "Minimal," Naruto confirmed, surprised by his own progress. "How did you know?" "Your expression," she explained. "When future sight comes naturally, there's a momentary clarity in one's features, like watching someone recognize a familiar melody. When forced, it resembles pain." As if summoned by his prediction, a messenger hawk appeared on the southern horizon, its distinctive silhouette unmistakable against the brightening sky. "Right on cue," Viola noted, rising gracefully to her feet. "Your accuracy is improving." Naruto stood as well, stretching muscles stiff from prolonged stillness. "It's still random, though. I can't choose what to see or when. That will come with practice," she assured him. "In my world, even the most talented observation haki users require years to achieve complete mastery. You've made remarkable progress in less than a week." The hawk circled once overhead before descending to Naruto's outstretched arm. Just as he had foreseen, the scroll it carried bore the distinctive wave-pattern seal of the water daimyo. The message inside matched his vision word for word. "You're needed," Viola observed, reading over his shoulder. "We're all needed," Naruto corrected, already moving toward the village. "The dimensional anomalies are spreading. And where there are rifts, there are likely sensory hunters," she finished. "I'll gather the others while you report to the Hokage." They parted at the base of the monument. Viola heading toward the temporary quarters assigned to their impromptu team while Naruto made for the Hokage Tower. As he navigated the increasingly busy morning streets, villagers called greetings tea. Had he returned with genuine warmth despite his preoccupation? The familiarity of these interactions grounded him. For all the extraordinary developments in his life, interdimensional visitors, new abilities, complex threats, Konoha remained home, its people the reason he continued pushing himself beyond ordinary limits. He found Kakashi already awake and reviewing reports in the Hokage's office, Shikamaru at his side. Neither appeared surprised by his early arrival or the scroll he presented. "The water daimyo is not alone in his concerns," Kakashi said, setting the scroll aside with others bearing similar requests. "We've received 17 reports of dimensional anomalies in the past 3 days. The daimyos are growing nervous." "As they should be," Shikamaru added, suppressing a yawn. "These rifts aren't random. Analysis shows they're appearing primarily near centers of political or military significance. Someone's testing boundaries." Naruto frowned. "The sensory hunters." "Likely," Kakashi confirmed. "Ibiki's interrogation of the captured agents has been challenging. Their mental conditioning includes suicide protocols if questioned too directly, and their knowledge is compartmentalized. Each knows only their specific mission parameters." "What have we learned?" Naruto pressed. Shikamaru gestured to a map spread across Kakashi's desk, marked with red pins indicating rift locations. "Their organization is larger and more sophisticated than we initially assumed. Hierarchical structure, specialized divisions, advanced technology that combines elements from multiple dimensions." "And their leader?" Naruto asked. "Takashi Kuroda," Kakashi confirmed. "Former Anbu Research Division, specialized in sensory perception enhancement. Disappeared 7 years ago during an ancient experiment involving bloodline limits. Presumed dead until now. He was trying to combine different sensory abilities even back then," Shikamaru elaborated. "His research was terminated test subjects began dying from chakra network overload. The working theory is that he's continued his experiments in secret, eventually discovering these dimensional rifts as a source of new sensory abilities beyond our world." Naruto absorbed this information grimly. So what's our next move? An emergency summit, Kakashi decided. Representatives from all affected nations, plus your team with their specialized knowledge. We need coordinated response protocols for these rifts, and a unified strategy against the sensory hunters. When? 3 days from now, here in Konoha, Shikamaru answered. We've already begun sending invitations. As the most publicly recognizable hero of the Fourth War and someone with direct experience of both the rifts and the hunters, you'll be our primary representative. Naruto nodded, accepting the responsibility without hesitation. I'll prepare our team's findings and recommendations. As he turned to leave, Kakashi added, one more thing, Naruto. E5 Cage will be monitoring this situation closely. How you handle this crisis will significantly impact their assessment of your potential as a future Hokage. The implicit message was clear. This was as much a test of his leadership as a response to an external threat. Naruto acknowledged this with a determined nod before departing. Outside the tower, he found Hinata waiting, her formal clan attire suggesting she had just come from an official Hyuga function despite the early hour. I sensed your chakra nearby, she explained with a small smile. The clan elders called an emergency meeting about the dimensional disturbances. They're concerned about potential threats to the Byakugan. Their concern is justified, Naruto replied, falling into step beside her as they walked through the awakening village. The sensory hunters specifically target bloodline abilities like the Byakugan. Hinata nodded. I've implemented additional security protocols for the clan. But that's not why I was looking for you. Her expression softened with concern. How are you feeling? These new abilities must be taking a toll. Better, actually, Naruto admitted. Viola's training techniques are helping. The visions come more naturally now. With less pain. Something flickered across Hinata's features at the mention of Viola, a momentary tightening around her eyes, quickly masked. I'm glad she's been helpful. The slight hesitation was barely perceptible. My offer to examine your chakra network still stands. The Byakugan might provide insights her training cannot. I'd appreciate that, Naruto said sincerely. Maybe this afternoon. We're gathering the team to prepare for an emergency summit in 3 days. Of course. Hinata's formal reserve softened into genuine warmth. I've been our king on a modified gentle fist technique that might help regulate chakra flow during your visions. It's experimental, but promising. Their conversation continued as they made their way toward the Temporary headquarters assigned to Naruto's team, a converted Anbu facility with enhanced security and research capabilities. Throughout their walk, Naruto found himself increasingly aware of Hinata's essence beside him, the graceful economy of her movements, the quiet confidence she had developed in recent years, the subtle floral scent that surrounded her. These observations weren't new, but his perception of them had somehow sharpened. Whether from Viola's training enhancing his general awareness or from the evolution of his own feelings, he couldn't say. They arrived to find the others already assembled. Viola and Amaya were engaged in quiet conversation by the tactical display. Kaori hunched over laboratory equipment, analyzing samples from the dimensional rifts. Rei sat slightly apart, her hands wrapped around a steaming cup of her own specialty tea, expression distant. Diplomatic responses are intensifying, Amaya reported as Naruto and Hinata joined them. Her silver eyes reflect. The overhead lights like captured moonbeams. My archipelago's elders have suspended all maritime trade until the rifts are explained. Similar protective measures are being implemented across the continent. Economic disruption plays into the hunters' strategy, Viola observed. Create chaos, then exploit the resulting confusion to extract their targets without opposition. Kaori looked up from her microscope, brushing a strand of dark red hair from her forehead. I've completed analysis of the energy signatures from the rifts. They're not natural phenomena. Someone is deliberately weakening the dimensional barriers using a combination of technology and chakra manipulation. Can they be closed? Hinata asked, activating her Byakugan to examine the sample slides on Kaori's workbench. Theoretically, Kaori replied, but it would require understanding exactly how they're being opened in the first place. I've never seen chakra signatures like these. They contain elements that don't exist in our dimensional framework. Like Viola's haki, Naruto suggested. Similar but distinct, Kaori corrected. Haki appears to be a natural energy form in her dimension. These signatures contain artificially combined energy patterns, as if someone has extracted and fused different dimensional properties. Ray spoke up unexpectedly, her voice soft but clear. The process you're describing sounds like memory fusion. When all eyes turned to her, she continued with uncharacteristic authority. It's an advanced application of memory sight. Instead of simply recalling witnessed abilities, the use actually combines memory fragments to create new techniques. Is that part of your bloodline ability? Naruto asked, surprised. A shadow passed over Rei's features. No, but I've seen it performed. Her fingers tightened around her teacup. At least, I think I have. My memories from certain periods are fragmented. What periods? Viola asked sharply, her intelligence officer instincts activated. Rei's brow furrowed in concentration. 3 years ago, a 6-month period where I supposedly traveled to study tea cultivation techniques. My family has records of my journey, letters I sent home, souvenirs I brought back. Her amber eyes clouded with uncertainty. But when I try to access specific memories from that time, I find gaps. Inconsistencies. The implications hung heavy in the air until Amaya broke the silence. You believe you were taken by the sensory hunters during that period. That your memories were altered. It wasn't a question, but Rei nodded anyway. I've been having dreams since you all arrived. Fragments returning. Laboratory environments. Medical equipment. A man with glass spectacles who called me the perfect record keeper. Takashi Kuroda, Naruto realized. He had you first, then let you go. But why? Perhaps he couldn't extract or replicate her ability, Kaori suggested, professional interest overriding her usual reserve. Memory sight may require the intact consciousness of the user to function properly. Or he implanted something in her mind, Viola countered grimly. Information, triggers, or monitoring capabilities. Rei paled at the suggestion. But her expression remained determined. If he's in my head, I want him out. Whatever he took or left behind, I need to know. I can help with that, Viola offered. My glare powers can penetrate mental barriers. Possibly reveal what's been hidden from your conscious mind. And I can monitor your chakra network during the process, Hinata added, her natural compassion overcoming any personal reservations about Viola. To ensure the procedure doesn't cause damage. Do it, Rei decided without hesitation. If my memories contain information that could help stop the hunters, we need to access them before the summit. As they prepared for the delicate mental exploration, Naruto pulled Amaya aside. While they work with Rei, I need your help with something else. Your echolocation ability, how precise is it? Amaya raised an elegant eyebrow. I can map every individual in this building, distinguish their heartbeats, detect minute shifts in their breathing patterns, and identify concealed weapons down to the type of metal they're crafted from. Why do you ask? Because I think our training methods might be complementary, Naruto explained. Viola's techniques focus on passive reception, opening myself to future possibilities. But my combat style has always been active and direct. I need to balance both approaches. Understanding dawned in Amaya's silver eyes. Quote, you want to combine the receptive nature of future sight with the projective techniques of echolocation. Exactly. During the war, I developed sensory abilities that let me detect negative emotions and track chakra signatures across great distances. If I could integrate that with future sight, you could potentially direct your precognitive abilities toward specific threats rather than receiving random visions, Amaya finished. Genuine excitement coloring her typically diplomatic composure. An intriguing proposition. Let me show you the fundamentals. While Viola and Hinata worked with Rei in the secured medical wing, Amaya led Naruto to the training arena. Unlike Viola's meditation-based approach, Amaya's techniques involved precisely controlled sound production, from vocal tones to physical movements that generated specific acoustic patterns. Echolocation begins with understanding that all objects, living or inanimate, produce vibrations, she explained, demonstrating a complex hand seal that Naruto had never encountered. These vibrations interact with sound waves, creating unique patterns that can be interpreted with the right sensory calibration. Naruto's first attempts were clumsy by his own admission, producing discordant sound pulses that bounced chaotically around the arena. Yet Amaya's patience never wavered. She adjusted his hand positions with gentle precision, her fingers lingering momentarily against his as she guided the proper form. The key difference between our techniques, she observed after his 5th attempt, is that mine requires conscious projection before reception. You must send out the pulse with clear intent before you can interpret what returns. While Future Sight is purely receptive, Naruto noted, understanding dawning. Which is W. High combining them might create something greater than either alone. Hour after hour, they refined the integration of their techniques. By midday, Naruto could project a focused sound pulse that interacted with his nascent future sight, creating brief but directed glimpses of specific locations or individuals he concentrated on. The breakthrough came unexpectedly. During a momentary rest, Naruto's thoughts turned to Rei and the others, wondering about their progress. Without conscious effort, he formed Amaya's hand seal while thinking of the medical wing. Instantly, a vision crystallized. Viola will place her hands on either side of Rei's temples. Hinata will activate her Byakugan to monitor chakra flow. Rei will gasp as sealed memories surface. The coastal laboratory, she'll whisper. I know where it is. When the vision ended, Naruto found Amaya watching him with fascination. You directed it, she stated. I could see the change in your chakra flow, it became focused rather than receptive. It worked, he confirmed. Exhilaration filling him. I saw what's happening with Rei right now, not just what's about to happen around me. Remarkable, Amaya murmured. In my homeland, it takes decades to achieve such integration of sensory techniques. Your adaptability is extraordinary. The genuine admiration in her voice brought unexpected warmth to Naruto's chest. Unlike the deference he often received as the hero of the Fourth War, Amaya's respect felt personal, based on direct observation rather than reputation. I've always been a fast learner with the right teacher, he replied with a grin that momentarily replaced his diplomatic persona with his more natural exuberance. Amaya's typically reserved expression softened in response. Then we should continue your education, Uzumaki-san. The summit is only 3 days away, and mastery requires practice. Just Naruto is fine, he corrected. After sharing chakra techniques, formality seems unnecessary. Naruto. Then, she acquiesced, his name carrying a musical quality in her accent. And you may call me Amaya, rather than Ambassador Shimizu. Their training resumed with renewed focus, but the atmosphere had shifted, professional collaboration warming into something more personal, though neither acknowledged it directly. When they finally returned to the main headquarters several hours later, the others gathered around a tactical display with expressions of grim determination. Perfect timing, Kaori said as they entered. Rei's recovered memories have given us a critical advantage. Rei herself looked drained but resolute, her normally perfect posture showing signs of exhaustion. I remember everything now, she said without preamble. 3 years ago, I was abducted during what I thought was a tea sourcing expedition to the coastal regions. Takashi Kuroda held me for 4 months in a laboratory built into sea cliffs near the border of the Land of Water. You were an experimental subject, Viola continued, her expression hardened by what she had witnessed in Rei's restored memories. Kuroda was attempting to extract and replicate your memory sight ability using specialized equipment. When conventional extraction failed, Hinata added, her Byakugan still partially activated from the procedure, he attempted to use Rei as a living repository for research data, implanting memories of his experiments and findings directly into her mind, then sealing them behind a forgetting technique. A human archive, Kaori clarified, professional detachment barely masking her disgust. Secure from both physical theft and digital interception. The ultimate protection for his most valuable research. Naruto processed this information with mounting anger. So he not only experimented on you, but turned you into a storage device for his findings. Without your knowledge or consent. Yes, Rei confirmed, a flicker of her own anger breaking through her exhaustion. And I wasn't the only one. My recovered memories include glimpses of at least 20 other captives with various sensory abilities. Some survived, others, she didn't need to complete the thought. The crucial information, Viola redirected, is that Rei now remembers the laboratory's exact location and security parameters. We also know that Kuroda maintains it as his primary research facility, returning there between field operations. Which means we have a chance to strike directly at the heart of his operation, Naruto concluded. Before the summit. That would be reckless, Amaya cautioned. We have incomplete intelligence, unknown opposition strength, and diplomatic considerations. A failed strike could escalate the situation beyond control. She's right, Hinata agreed reluctantly. As much as I share your desire for immediate action, we need the collective resources that the summit will provide. International cooperation, not unilateral intervention. Naruto recognized the wisdom in their counsel, though it chafed against his instinct to protect others through direct action. 3 days, then, he conceded. We prepare, we plan, and we use the summit to build the coalition needed to end this threat permanently. In the meantime, Kaori suggested, we should focus on protecting Rei. If Kuroda realizes her memory seals have been broken, she becomes his primary target, both to Rekka Pture his archive, and to prevent her from revealing his operations. I'll coordinate with Anbu for enhanced security protocols, Hinata offered. The Hyuga compound can also offer sanctuary if needed. Our defenses against visual infiltration techniques are unparalleled. As they continued refining security arrangements, Naruto observed the natural way his unlikely team had begun functioning together, each contributing specialized knowledge and abilities, personal differences set aside in service to their shared mission. Even Hinata and Viola, whose potential rivalry for his attention might have created tension, demonstrated professional respect and cooperation. The remainder of the day passed in focused preparation, analyzing Rei's recovered intelligence, developing strategic options, and continuing to refine their individual and collective capabilities. By evening, exhaustion had settled over the group, prompting Naruto to call for rest before another intensive day of preparation. As the others departed for their quarters, Hinata approached Naruto. If you're not too tired, I could examine your chakra network now, she offered. It might help alleviate any strain from today's training. I'd appreciate that, Naruto accepted gratefully. The day's intensive practice with Amaya's techniques, while productive, had left his chakra pathways feeling raw and overextended. They relocated to a quiet meditation room equipped with traditional healing amenities, a holdover from when the facility had served as an Anbu recovery center. Hinata gestured for Naruto to sit on a cushioned seat while she prepared specialized ointments with practiced efficiency. Remove your jacket and shirt, she instructed professionally. I'll need direct access to your major chakra points. Naruto complied, the familiar comfort of their long association making the request feel natural rather than invasive. As he settled cross-legged on the mat, Hinata knelt behind him, her Byakugan activating with a whispered technique. Your chakra network has always been unusual, she observed, her voice taking on the clinical precision she used when functioning as a medical nin. Larger capacity, accelerated regeneration, and more adaptive pathways than average, likely due to your Uzumaki heritage combined with being Kurama's Jinchuriki. Her fingers, coated with cooling medicinal ointment, began tracing precise patterns along his spine and shoulders, following the main chakra channels visible only to her specialized vision. The integration of Future Sight is creating new neural chakra connections, she continued. Similar to what happens when shinobi develop new techniques, but more fundamental. Like your network is evolving rather than simply adapting. Is that dangerous? Naruto asked, feeling the tension in his shoulders melting under her skilled ministrations. Not inherently, Hinata replied after thoughtful consideration. But it requires balance. The new pathways are developing rapidly while existing ones are being repurposed. Without proper integration, you could experience system collapse during crucial moments. Her hands moved to his neck and the base of his skull, where our fingers applied gentle but precisely targeted pressure. The relief was immediate, a cooling sensation that spread through his overheated chakra network like spring water through parched channels. That feels amazing, Naruto sighed, his head dropping forward involuntarily as the persistent tension he'd been carrying for days finally released. I'm adapting a Hyuga medical technique, Hinata explained, a smile evident in her voice despite his inability to see her face. We developed it for clan members who strain their visual pathways through overuse of the Byakugan. The principle should be similar for your future sight. As she worked, the professional distance between them gradually softened. Her touch remained precise but took on a more personal quality, lingering momentarily at his shoulders. Gently correcting his posture with a hand at his lower back, fingers occasionally brushing against his hair when working near his temples. "You've changed," Naruto observed quietly after several minutes of comfortable silence. "Not just your abilities or position, but your presence. You move with complete confidence now." Her hands paused momentarily before resuming their work. "The war changed all of us," she replied. "Facing death has a way of clarifying what matters. Afterward, clan politics and social anxieties seemed less significant." "It suits you," he said sincerely. This version of Hinata who knows exactly who she is and what she wants. Another pause, longer this time. When she spoke again, her voice carried an undertone he couldn't quite identify. "And what about you, Naruto? With all these changes, new abilities, diplomatic responsibilities, interdimensional threats, do you still know what you want?" The question carried weight beyond its simple wording. Naruto considered it carefully before answering, aware that his response mattered more than ordinary conversation. "My core desires haven't changed," he finally said. "Protecting the village, serving as Hokage someday, creating a world where understanding overcomes hatred." He hesitated, then added with characteristic honesty, "But my understanding of how to achieve those things has evolved. And so have my personal considerations." "Personal considerations?" Hinata's voice remained carefully neutral. Naruto turned slightly, breaking the healing routine to meet her gaze directly. "Connections with people, not just as a shinobi or diplomat or future Hokage, but as myself." "Just Naruto." The lavender of her eyes deepened as something unspoken passed between them, acknowledgement of feelings that matured and evolved alongside their individual growth. Neither pushed for definition or commitment, but the possibility hung in the air between them, tangible as the medicinal scent of the healing ointments. "Your chakra network should function more efficiently now," Hinata finally said, breaking the moment with gentle professionalism. "But you'll need regular treatments until the new pathways fully integrate." "I look forward to them," Naruto replied with a sincerity that brought a soft flush to her cheeks. Their session concluded with comfortable familiarity, the years of shared history and mutual respect providing foundation for whatever might develop between them in the future. The next morning brought an unexpected complication. Naruto arrived at headquarters to find Kaori and Viola in heated disagreement. Their normally controlled demeanors giving way to professional passion. "The physiological indicators are unmistakable," Kaori insisted, gesturing to complex medical data displayed on multiple screens. "The dimensional rifts are occurring more frequently because they're building toward a critical mass event. If we wait until after the summit to act, it may be too late." ND rushing in with incomplete intelligence guarantees failure, Viola countered, her intelligence officer experience evident in her measured argument. "Kuroda has prepared for direct assault. His face Liddy's will be heavily defended with both conventional and dimensional countermeasures." "What's happening?" Naruto asked, stepping between them. Kaori turned to him immediately. "I've completed analysis of the rift energy patterns. They're not random or opportunistic, they're following a precise mathematical progression." She indicated a graph showing exponential growth. "Each rift makes subsequent ones easier to generate, reducing the energy requirement. At current progression, within 5 days, opening dimensional gates will require minimal effort." "The summit is in 2 days, Naruto noted. "We'll still have time to organize a response." "That assumes Kuroda isn't accelerating his timeline," Kaori argued. "These readings suggest he's preparing for something specific, potentially a large-scale extraction operation or mass deployment of dimensional technology. All the more reason to proceed cautiously," Viola maintained. "If we strike prematurely and fail, we lose our only advantage, the element of surprise." The debate might have continued, but Naruto's newly refined future sight activated, this time with the focused direction he had practiced with Amaya. The communications aura, will activate with an emergency signal. Shikamaru's voice will come through, tense with controlled urgency. "Naruto, we have a situation. Multiple dimensional rifts have appeared simultaneously in 4 different nations. The Land of Water reports armed incursions through their rift. The summit has been moved up to tomorrow." As the vision ended, Naruto was already moving toward the communications array. Seconds later, it activated exactly as he had foreseen, Shikamaru's message matching word for word. Acknowledged. Naruto responded when Shikamaru finished. We'll prepare immediate strategic options for presentation tomorrow. Have the delegates been notified of the change? They're en route now, Shikamaru confirmed. Gaara and the Cage delegation arrived early and are already secured at the diplomatic compound. Others will be arriving throughout the day. Increase perimeter security and implement dimensional monitoring protocols based on Kaori's research, Naruto instructed. We'll join you at the compound within the hour. When the communication ended, he turned to find his entire team watching him with varied expressions, from Kaori's vindication to Viola's cautious reassessment. Looks like events have decided our timeline for us, Naruto observed grimly. Kaori, prepare your research for immediate presentation. Viola, we need intelligence assessment based on Rei's recovered memories integrated with current developments. Amaya, your diplomatic expertise will be crucial in presenting united response options. He paused, then added, Rei and Hinata, I need you to work together on security protocols for the summit itself. If the hunters are accelerating their timeline, they might target the gathered leadership directly. As the team dispersed to their assigned tasks, Rei lingered behind. There's something else in my recovered memories, she said once they were alone. Something I haven't shared with the others yet because I'm still processing the implications. Naruto gave her his full attention. What is it? Kuroda spoke about his ultimate objective, not just to his subordinates, but to me directly, as his archive. Her amber eyes clouded with residual trauma. He believes that by combining specific sensory abilities in precise configurations, he can achieve what he calls absolute perception, the ability to perceive all possibilities across all dimensions simultaneously. That's. Naruto struggled to comprehend the scale of such ambition. Godlike, Rei finished quietly. He intends to transcend human limitation through composite sensory integration. To become omniscient, and therefore omnipotent, and the dimensional rifts, are preparation for the final phase, she confirmed. He needs specific abilities from specific dimensions, combined in a precise sequence. Once he has them all, he'll conduct a mass integration ritual using technology and forbidden techniques that bridge dimensional boundaries. Naruto absorbed this information with growing concern. When you say specific abilities, do you mean? Yes, Rei interrupted. Your future sight, Viola's glare powers, Amaya's echolocation, my memory sight, Hinata's Byakugan, even Kaori's specialized chakra perception techniques. We each represent a piece of his grand design. That's why he let you go 3 years ago, Naruto realized. You weren't a failed experiment, you were bait. He knew eventually all the pieces would be drawn together. And now that we are, Rei concluded, he's making his move. The implication hung heavy between them. Not only were they targets individually, but their collective gathering represented the culmination of Kuroda's years-long strategy. The summit wasn't just at risk of attack, it was potentially the centerpiece of his plan. We need to inform the others. Naruto decided. Revise our strategy completely. Wait, Rei cautioned. There's one more thing. In my memories, Kuroda mentioned a failsafe, something implanted not just in my mind, but potentially in all his former test subjects. A trigger that would activate under specific circumstances. Like what? I don't know, she admitted. But if I attend the summit and he's monitoring somehow, you become a potential security breach, Naruto completed her thought. A sleeper agent who doesn't even know they've been activated. Rei nodded, her expression a mixture of fear and resolve. Which is why I can't attend. I need to be secured separately, with safeguards in place in case the failsafe activates. Hinata can arrange protective custody with the Hyuga, Naruto suggested. Their compound has specialized sealing techniques that might block external activation signals. Thank you, Rei said quietly, for not looking at me differently after learning I might be compromised. You're a victim, not an accomplice, Naruto replied firmly. And your willingness to remove yourself from the equation to protect others proves that. With this new understanding, Naruto reorganized their approach to the accelerated summit. Rei would remain secured in the Hyuga compound under specialized protection. The others would attend with heightened awareness of potential manipulation or targeting. And Naruto himself would present a unified strategy incorporating their collective intelligence. The remainder of the day passed in intensive preparation. By evening, as diplomatic delegations continued arriving in Konoha, Naruto gathered his team for final coordination before the summit. Tomorrow will determine the trajectory of this crisis, he began, looking at each of them in turn. We know more about Kuroda's objectives and methods than he realizes. That's our advantage, but he still holds several cards we haven't identified, Viola cautioned. Inkle, using potential sleeper protocols in Rei and others who've been in his custody. And the accelerating dimensional rifts, Kaori added. My latest calculations suggest we're approaching a threshold point where the barriers between worlds become permanently weakened. Which means our response must be decisive and unified, Amaya concluded. The archipelago nations stand ready to contribute special IZED sensory barrier techniques if the 5 great nations will provide implementation resources. Hinata, who had just returned from establishing Rei's protective custody arrangements, added, the Hyuga clan has pledged full support, including deployment of Byakugan users to monitor for dimensional anomalies throughout the summit. Naruto nodded, a familiar determination settling over him. Get some rest tonight. Tomorrow we face Kuroda's next move, whatever it may be. As the others departed, Amaya lingered behind, her silver eyes reflecting the determination that had characterized her contribution throughout the crisis. A moment of your time, Naruto, she requested. When they were alone, she continued, there's something you should know about echolocation that may prove useful tomorrow. What's that? At its most advanced application, it can function as a disruptive technique as well as a perceptive one, she explained. By projecting precisely calibrated sound frequencies, 1Ca, temporarily disables certain types of sensory abilities, including, potentially, the activation of sleeper protocols. Naruto's eyes widened. You think you could block Kuroda's triggering signals if he attempts to activate compromised individuals during the summit? I believe so, she confirmed. But it requires physical contact with the targeted individual and significant chakra expenditure. I couldn't protect everyone simultaneously, but you could protect key individuals at critical moments, Naruto noted, already incorporating this capability into his tactical planning. That could be decisive, Amaya nodded, then hesitated before adding, there's another application that might be relevant to your situation specifically. Her typical diplomatic reserve softened slightly. Echolocat. Ion can also stabilize fluctuating chakra pathways during sensory overload, like what happens when your future sight activates unexpectedly. Hinata has been helping with that, Naruto mentioned. Through after-the-fact treatment. Amaya clarified, what I'm offering is real-time stabilization during active episodes. It would allow you to maintain combat effectiveness even while experiencing visions. The practical value of such assistance was immediately apparent, but Naruto found himself equally affected by the personal nature of the offer. Like Hinata's healing sessions, it represented a level of trust and connection beyond mere tactical cooperation. That would be incredibly valuable, he acknowledged sincerely. Though it would put you at risk during combat situations. I am not merely a diplomat. Amaya reminded him with a hint of amused pride. The Shimizu clan has produced warrior envoys for 17 generations. We negotiate peace when possible and enforce it when necessary. Something in her confident assertion reminded Naruto of his own dual nature, the diplomat he was becoming and the fighter he had always been, neither identity negating the other but rather complementing it. I look forward to seeing those warrior skills in action, he replied with genuine respect. Amaya's reserved expression warmed briefly. Let us hope diplomacy prevails tomorrow, but prepare as if it will not. She turned to leave, then added, rest well, Naruto. Your leadership has been impressive throughout this crisis. After she departed, Naruto found himself reflecting on the complex web of connections he had formed with these remarkable women, each relationship distinct, each bringing out different aspects of his evolving identity. The weight of leadership had never felt lighter than when shared with capable allies who challenged and supported him in equal measure. The summit convened at dawn the following day. Konoha's largest diplomatic chamber had been specially reinforced with sealing techniques and dimensional stabilization equipment developed from Kaori's research. Representatives from 17 nations filled the tiered seating, their diverse attire and insignia reading a visual representation of the unprecedented cooperation this crisis had fostered. Naruto stood at the central podium, Viola and Amaya flanking him while Kaori managed the technical presentity. Ons and Hinata coordinated with Byakugan users positioned throughout the complex. Their prisoner from the previous engagement, one of the sensory hunters' field operatives, had been brought in under HEA VY guard to provide verification of their intelligence. Distinguished representatives, Naruto began, his diplomatic persona firmly in place despite the urgency thrumming beneath his measured tones. We face an unprecedented threat that transcends national boundaries and even dimensional ones. Takashi Kuroda and his sensory hunters organization have been systematically abducting individuals with specialized perceptive abilities, conducting forbidden experiments, and deliberately weakening the barriers between dimensions. As he continued outlining the situation, supported by Kaori's technical data and Viola's interdimensional perspective, Naruto observed the shifting reactions among the delegates. Initial skepticism gave way to growing concern as the evidence mounted. When Amaya presented detailed reports of abductions from her archipelago nations, followed by similar accounts from other regions, the collective mood shifted from diplomatic caution to resolute determination. Based on recovered intelligence, Naruto concluded, "We believe Kuroda is preparing for a final operation, what he calls absolute perception. The accelerating dimensional rifts are preparation for a mass integration ritual that could permanently damage the barriers between worlds while granting him unprecedented sensory capabilities. What do you propose as a unified response?" asked the Earth Daimyo, his normally impassive features marked with rare concern. "A three-phase strategy," Naruto answered confidently. "First, immediate deployment of sensory barrier techniques to stabilize existing rifts, preventing further deterioration. Second, establishment of an international task force specifically equipped to counter dimensional incursions. And third, a targeted operation against Kuroda's primary research facility based on intelligence from former captives." The discussion that followed demonstrated Naruto's growth as a diplomatic leader. He navigated complex international politics with surprising adeptness, addressing concerns about sovereignty, resource allocation, and operational authority with measured responses that acknowledged legitimate interests while maintaining focus on the common threat. Throughout the proceedings, he periodically made eye contact with his team members, drawing strength from their presence and expertise. Viola's subtle nods affirmed his handling of intelligence matters. Amaya's diplomatic interventions smoothed potential conflicts between traditional rivals. Kaori's precise technical clarifications established credibility with skeptical delegates. And Hinata's quiet support, conveyed through occasional glances, provided personal reassurance amid professional pressure. The summit was progressing toward consensus when Naruto's future sight activated, more powerfully than ever before. Unlike previous episodes, this vision came with overwhelming sensory detail and extended temporal range. Multiple dimensional rifts will form simultaneously around the diplomatic compound. Takashi Kuroda will enter through the largest rift, accompanied by elite sensory hunters. He will announce, "How convenient. All my specimens gathered in one place." His right hand will bear a device resembling a modified chakra absorption tool. When activated, it will emit a signal that triggers sleeper protocols in compromised individuals throughout the compound. The vision extended further than any previous one, showing chaos erupting as security forces engaged the hunters while Kuroda systematically targeted specific individuals with sensory abilities. Most disturbingly, Naruto saw Rei breaking free from her protective custody at the Hyuga compound, moving with mechanical precision toward the summit location. As the vision ended, he found Amaya's hand on his arm, her echolocation technique already working to stabilize his chakra network. The episode had lasted only seconds in real time, allowing him to continue his diplomatic address without noticeable interruption. Coordination protocols that respect individual sovereignty while enabling effective response, he concluded smoothly, then added with sudden urgency, "However, I believe we must expedite our decision. Intelligence suggests imminent action by Kuroda's forces." He signaled discreetly to his team, conveying the warning through pre-arranged gestures. Viola immediately moved toward the security contingent. While Hinata activated her Byakugan to scan the surrounding area, Kaori began inputting commands into the dimensional monitoring equipment, recalibrating detection parameters based on Naruto's warning. The delegates, sensing the shift in atmosphere, accelerated their deliberations. Within minutes, preliminary approval for all 3 phases of Naruto's proposed strategy had been granted. A diplomatic miracle under normal circumstances. It wasn't a moment too soon. Just as the final authorization was being recorded, the distinctive distortion of dimensional rifts began manifesting at multiple points around the compound. Alarm systems activated as Kaori's equipment detected the energy signatures. Evacuate non-essential personnel, Naruto ordered, his diplomatic persona giving way to battlefield command. Security forces to predetermined defensive positions. Sensory specialists implement countermeasures according to Protocol 7. The assembled representatives were quickly escorted to secure locations while combat-capable delegates joined the defense effort. Gaara of the Sand remained, his sand already swirling in preparation. The Mizukage's representative, a renowned NSOR-type shinobi, moved to support Kaori's dimensional monitoring station. Northern Quadrant breach imminent, Hinata reported, her Byakugan focused on the largest forming rift. Multiple chakra sign, Atur's approaching, unlike any I've seen before. Hybrid signatures, Kaori confirmed grimly. Combined chakra patterns from multiple subjects. He's already implemented partial integration. The rift expanded with a sound like tearing fabric, space itself warping as it opened fully. Through the distortion stepped a figure that matched the prisoner's description of Takashi Kuroda, tall and lean, with angular features and circular spectacles that reflected light unnaturally. His laboratory attire had been augmented with combat modifications, and the device from Naruto's vision was clearly visible on his right hand. How convenient, he announced, his voice carrying academic detachment despite the chaos surrounding him. All my specimens gathered in one place. 5 elite hunters flanked him, each wearing specialized equipment that enhanced their already formidable abilities. Unlike the foot soldiers they had encountered previously, these operatives moved with the deadly precision of severely modified subjects, their bodies and chakra networks visibly altered to accommodate enhanced sensory capabilities. Kuroda, Naruto acknowledged, stepping forward as the defensive formation established itself around him. Your experiments end today. The scientist regarded him with clinical interest. Uzumaki Naruto, your future sight has developed remarkably quickly, as expected from the hero of the Fourth War. You'll make an excellent cornerstone for the Absolute Perception Protocol. You're outnumbered and surrounded, Naruto pointed out, shadow clones already forming around the perimeter. Surrender now. Kuroda's smile held no warmth. Am I? He raised his right hand, activating the device. Let's see how your numerical advantage holds when my sleeper protocols activate. I emitted a high-pitched signal that human ears could barely detect. Throughout the compound, individuals with previous exposure to Kuroda's experiments suddenly stiffened, including 3 security personnel and 1 delegate from a minor nation. But the mass activation Kuroda clearly expected failed to materialize. His expression shifted from confidence to confusion as most of his potential sleeper agents remained unaffected. Amaya stepped forward, her hands forming the complex seal of her most advanced echolocation technique. Sound barrier. Harmonic disruption field, she announced, silver eyes gleaming with focused power. The air around them vibrated with barely perceptible acoustic waves that neutralized Kuroda's activation signal. Impossible, he muttered, adjusting his device. triggering frequency is mathematically precise. It cannot be countered by conventional means. Echolocation is hardly conventional, Amaya replied, maintaining her technique despite the visible strain it caused. Your signal is sound-based. Mine is simply louder. Kuroda's momentary surprise gave way to calculating assessment. Shimizu clan echolocation, another valuable component for my collection. He signaled to his elite hunters. Proceed with priority extraction protocol. The battle erupted with coordinated fury from both sides. Naruto's shadow clones engaged the nearest hunters, while Gaara's sand provided defensive barriers around key personnel. Viola and Hinata moved in perfect synchronization, one perceiving vulnerabilities with her glare powers, the other striking with precision gentle fist techniques. Kaori proved her combat value as well, her medical knowledge translating to devastating effect as she targeted the modified chakra networks of the elite hunters. Their enhancements are their weakness, she called out, disabling one operative by striking precisely where experimental modifications connected to original pathways. Target the junction points. Throughout the chaos, Amaya maintained her disruption field, preventing Kuroda from activating additional sleeper agents. The effort visibly drained her, but her determination never wavered. Naruto himself focused on Kuroda, recognizing that the scientist represented the central threat. As they engaged directly, Naruto quickly realized his opponent was no mere academic. Kuroda's modified body incorporated sensory abilities from multiple subjects, giving him preternatural awareness of his surroundings and upcoming attacks. Your future sight is impressive, Kuroda acknowledged as he evaded a perfectly executed Rasengan. But limited to immediate possibilities. My composite perception encompasses multiple temporal layers simultaneously. To demonstrate, he countered not just Naruto's current attack but the follow-up strategy Naruto had only begun to formulate. It was like fighting someone who had already witnessed the entire battle from beginning to end. You see fragments of what might be, Kuroda continued. His movements eerily efficient. I perceive the complete tapestry of possibility. Despite this advantage, the combined efforts of Naruto's team gradually gained ground against the hunters. Viola and Hinata disabled two elite operatives through coordinated attacks that exploited blind spots in their enhanced perception. Kaori's precise strikes neutralized a third. Gaara's sand immobilized the fourth. And Amaya, despite maintaining her disruption field, managed to disorient the fifth with targeted sonic pulses. Kuroda, observing his boss's defeat, shifted strategies with cold calculation. Contingency protocol activated, he announced into a communication device. Execute secondary extraction objective. Before anyone could interpret this command, multiple smaller rifts opened throughout the compound, precision extractions rather than combat deployments. Through one such rift, additional hunters extracted the immobilized operative from Gaara's sand before he could react. Others targeted the unconscious hunters that Viola and Hinata had defeated. He's recovering his assets, Viola realized. These aren't attack portals, they're evacuation points. But why? Naruto began, then froze as his future sight activated again, showing him the true objective of Kuroda's apparent retreat. The largest extraction rift will open at the Hyuga compound. Rei, already moving, under sleeper protocol influence despite the protective seals, will be captured by specialized hunters. The archive returns to its keeper, Kuroda will say. It's a diversion, Naruto shouted. His primary target is Rei at the Hyuga compound. Hinata immediately redirected her Byakugan toward her clan's compound. Confirmed, she reported urgently. Multiple rifts forming around the protective seal perimeter. And Rei is moving toward them, despite the containment protocols. But how? Amaya demanded, her disruption field still active. My technique should block the activation signal. Different frequency, Kaori realized. He must have multiple triggering signals for different subjects. We need to split up, Naruto decided instantly. Hinata, return to your compound and coordinate defense there. Viola, go with her. Your glare powers might help break through whatever control he has over Rei. Amaya, maintain the disruption field here to protect the delegates. Kaori, continue monitoring the dimensional signatures. I'll handle Kuroda. As his team moved to execute their assigned roles, Naruto faced Kuroda with renewed determination. Your plan has failed. Even now, you're losing the assets you've spent years collecting. Kuroda's expression remained unnervingly serene. You mistake tactical adjustment for strategic failure, Uzumaki. Every confrontation provides data. Every interaction refines my parameters. He glanced at his monitoring device. For instance, I now understand that future sight can be directed through emotional connection. Your concern for your associates creates predictable priority patterns. With shocking speed, he activated a specialized technique that created multiple illusory duplicates of himself. Not simple clones, but complex sensory projections that registered as authentic to all perceptive abilities. Can you determine which version of me is real before I complete my objective? Kuroda challenged as the duplicates scattered in different directions. Or will you waste precious time while I secure the final component of absolute perception? Naruto's newly refined future sight offered no clarity. Each potential Kuroda generated identical future possibilities, suggesting his technique somehow masked even precognitive differentiation. Facing an impossible choice between pursuing Kuroda and protecting Rei, Naruto made the decision that defined his character. Shadow Clone Jutsu, he called, creating dozens of duplicates. Secure all exit points. Find the real Kuroda. He himself turned toward the Hyuga compound, trusting his team to handle the remaining threats while he focused on protecting those in greatest danger. As he raced across Konoha's rooftops, he channeled chakra into a specialized sensory technique developed during the war, extending his awareness to locate familiar chakra signatures. Hinata and Viola had already reached the compound, engaging hunter forces that had breached the outer perimeter. Through the chaos, Naruto caught glimpses of Rei moving with mechanical precision toward a central extraction point, her eyes vacant as the sleeper protocol controlled her actions. 3 hunters in specialized containment gear surrounded her, preparing for dimensional transport. Naruto's future sight showed him their extraction would complete in 17 seconds unless interrupted. Without hesitation, he activated Sage Mode, enhancing his physical capabilities beyond normal limits. The familiar surge of natural energy sharpened his senses and accelerated his movements as he cut through the battlefield toward Rei's position. 15 seconds. A hunter operative moved to intercept him, wielding a weapon that disrupted chakra flow on contact. Naruto feinted left before spinning into a perfect Rasengan. That shattered the weapon and incapacitated its wielder. 10 seconds. 2 more hunters deployed a specialized barrier technique to block his advance. Naruto's shadow clone attacked from below while he himself vaulted over the barrier, bypassing it entirely. 5 seconds. The lead hunter activated the extraction device, a swirling vortex of dimensional energy beginning to form around Rei. Naruto lunged forward, fingers stretching toward her even as the transport effect initiated. 3 seconds. His hand closed around her wrist just as the dimensional shift began. The sensation was indescribable, like being pulled in every direction simultaneously while remaining perfectly still. Colors inverted, sound became texture, and reality itself seemed to fold around them. 1 second. With a final surge of effort, Naruto pulled Rei back from the dimensional threshold, disrupting the extraction sequence. The backlash sent them both tumbling across the compound courtyard as the rift collapsed in on itself. The energy discharge temporarily neutralizing the hunter's equipment. Containment protocol compromised, announced the lead hunter through his communication device. Primary asset retrieval failed, awaiting instructions. Before a response could come, Hinata and Viola converged on their position. Hinata's gentle fist strikes disabled the remaining hunters with precise efficiency while Viola used her glare powers to assess Rei's condition. The sleeper protocol is still active, she reported urgently. But fluctuating, your disruption of the extraction created cognitive dissonance in the command structure. Can you break it? Naruto asked, supporting Rei's limp form. Not directly, Viola admitted. But I can see where the memory alteration connects to her authentic consciousness. If we can stimulate those authentic memories strongly enough, she might break through herself. What kind of stimulation? Hinata asked. Emotional anchors, Viola explained. Powerful associate ions that connect to her core identity rather than implanted directives. Naruto thought quickly. Her tea house. The memorial garden she maintains for her grandmother. Those represent her authentic self, not Kuroda's programming. Focus her attention on those memories, Viola instructed. I'll use my abilities to amplify the authentic pathways while suppressing the artificial ones. As they worked to free Rei from Kuroda's control, chaos continued throughout the village. Multiple extraction teams were withdrawing through dimensional rifts, taking recovered assets and data but leaving their primary objective, Rei, behind. They're retreating, Hinata reported, her Byakugan tracking movement across Konoha. All hunter teams disengaging simultaneously. Too coordinated for a defeat, Viola noted with professional concern. This feels like a strategic repositioning, completed a voice from behind them. They turned to find one of Kuroda's sensory projections standing calmly at the edge of the courtyard. Unlike the others, this one engaged directly rather than fleeing. Today was merely a reconnaissance in force, the projection stated, adjusting his spectacles with academic detachment. I've collected sufficient data on your capabilities, defensive protocols, and relational dynamics. You've lost, Naruto countered, rising to face the projection while the others continued working with Rei. Your extraction teams failed, Your sleeper protocols were disrupted. And the nations are uniting against you. Temporary setbacks against anticipated gains, Kuroda dismissed. Did you think this was my only operation? My final attempt? His projection smiled thinly. I've been preparing the absolute perception protocol for 7 years, Uzumaki. Today's engagement was merely one data point among thousands. The projection turned its attention to Rei, who was beginning to show signs of breaking through the sleeper programming as Viola's techniques took effect. My archive remains accessible, regardless of physical location, Kuroda stated with disturbing confidence. The memories of stored cannot be erased or fully sealed, they're integrated too deeply into her cognitive framework. We'll find a way, Naruto asserted. Perhaps, Kuroda acknowledged. But consider what other sleeper protocols might exist that you haven't yet identified. How many individuals in positions of authority across the 5 nations have visited my research facilities without remembering? How many carry my contingency programming while conducting their ordinary duties? The implications sent a chill through the group. If Kuroda had been operating for years, systematically implanting sleeper protocols in strategic individuals, the security compromise could be devastating. Why tell us this? Hinata demanded. You're revealing your advantage. Because understanding the scope of my operation won't help you counter it, Kuroda replied simply. And because chaos and suspicion serve my purposes as effectively as direct action. Before they could respond, the projection began to destabilize, its form wavering as the sustaining technique reached its limits. We will meet again soon, Uzumaki, Kuroda's fading projection promised. When the absolute perception protocol reaches completion, I'll require your future sight as its cornerstone. The question isn't if I'll acquire it, but when. As the projection dissolved completely, Rei gasped and sat upright, her eyes clearing as she broke through the sleeper programming. He was in my head again, she whispered, voice shaking with violation and fear. I could feel him accessing the stored research data, using me like a living archive while controlling my body. You're safe now, Hinata assured her, though the confidence in her voice didn't quite reach her eyes. No one is safe, Rei contradicted with bleak certainty. Not while he has access to what he stored inside me. The absolute perception protocol is nearly complete, he only needs a few more components. What components? Naruto pressed. Rei's haunted gaze met his. Future sight is the cornerstone, the ability to perceive possibilities before they manifest. But he also needs the Byakugan's all-seeing vision, Viola's memory penetration, Amaya's sound perception, and a 5th element he called, the catalyst. What's the catalyst? Viola asked. I don't know, Rei admitted. That information wasn't stored in my archive. But today's attack wasn't a failure from his perspective, it was a calibration. Now he knows exactly how our abilities function together, how we coordinate, and what defenses we can mount. As the implications settled over them, Naruto's expression hardened with determination. Then we change the parameters. If he's studied how we work together, we develop new combinations. If he's analyzed our abilities individually, we find ways to integrate them that he hasn't anticipated. And we take the fight to him, Viola added, her intelligence offic. Calculation shifting to warrior's resolve. Before he completes his protocol. The coastal laboratory, Rei confirmed, strength returning to her voice. His primary research facility. That's He'll perform the final integration when all components are assembled. Hinata activated her Byakugan, scanning the surrounding area one final time. The extraction rifts have all closed. Village security is re-establishing control. We should rejoin the others and coordinate our response. As they made their way back to the summit location, Naruto found his thoughts divided between immediate tactical concerns and deeper strategic implications. Kuroda had demonstrated capabilities beyond their initial assessment, not just scientific brilliance and dimensional manipulation, but profound psychological insight and strategic patience. The threat he posed transcended ordinary conflict. If his absolute perception protocol succeeded, it would create power imbalance beyond anything the shinobi were. LD had experienced, potentially beyond even what Madara and Kagaya had attempted during the Fourth War. Yet amid these grave concerns, Naruto found unexpected clarity. The women who had entered his life through this crisis had become more than allies, they were becoming integral to his understanding of himself and his path forward. Each relationship distinct, each connection genuine, each bond strengthened through shared purpose and mutual respect. Whether they could stop Kuroda's ambitious plan remained uncertain. But they would face that uncertainty together, combining their unique perspectives and abilities in ways even absolute perception couldn't anticipate. The summit reconvened in emergency session following the attack. Security protocols had been enhanced, dimensional monitoring equipment upgraded based on data gathered during the incursion, and international cooperation agreements formalized with unprecedented speed. The Unified Response Force will deploy within 24 hours, announced the Fire Daimyo. His customary political caution replaced by wartime decisiveness. Primary objective: locate and neutralize Takashi Kuroda's coastal research facility before the Absolute Perception Protocol can be completed. Naruto stood at the center of the operational planning, his team positioned around him as they finalized the assault strategy. The delegates had unanimously proved their leadership of the specialized strike force, recognizing that their unique abilities and first-hand knowledge of Kuroda's methods represented the best chance for success. Based on Rei's recovered memory data, the facility is built into sea cliffs at these coordinates, Kaori explained, indicating the location on a detailed topographical map. Multiple levels, specialized containment areas, and dimensional research laboratories. Conventional forces will secure the perimeter and handle standard defenses, Naruto continued. Our team will penetrate to the central research chamber W. Here the integration apparatus is located. As the final preparations were approved and forces began mobilizing, Naruto found a moment of quiet to address his core team privately. What we're facing goes beyond ordinary mission parameters. He acknowledged. Kuroda has studied each of us individually and collectively. He's anticipated our standard approaches and prepared countermeasures. Then we give him something he hasn't studied. Viola suggested. New combinations, integrated techniques, approaches he couldn't predict because they didn't exist until now. Precisely, Naruto agreed. Starting now, we develop collaborative techniques that combine our unique abilities in ways that transcend individual limitations. The hours that followed transformed them from a collection of specialists into something greater, a truly integrated team whose combined capabilities exceeded the sum of their parts. Viola's glare powers enhanced Hinata's Byakugan, extending its perceptive range across dimensional boundaries. Amaya's echolocation amplified Naruto's future sight, allowing him to direct his precognitive abilities with unprecedented precision. Kaori's medical expertise optimized air chakra networks for maximum efficiency during combined techniques. Even Rei, though she would remain in secure isolation during the operation itself, contributed crucial intelligence and tactical insights drawn from her recovered memories of the facility. By nightfall, as the Unified Response Force completed final preparations for the dawn assault, Naruto gathered his core team for one last strategic session. The weight of tomorrow's mission hung over them, but beneath the professional focus lay deeper currents of connection that had developed through shared danger and purpose. Whatever happens tomorrow, Naruto said, looking at each of them in turn, know that meeting you all, working with you, learning from you, has changed me in ways I'm still discovering. Each of you has brought something unique into my life that I never knew was missing. The sincerity in his voice transcended ordinary pre-mission encouragement. These women had become important to him not just as allies but as individuals who understood different aspects of his evolving identity: the diplomat, the warrior, the leader, the friend, and potentially something more. Get some rest, he concluded, his gaze lingering momentarily on each of them. Tomorrow we face Kuroda on our terms, not his. As they dispersed to their quarters, Naruto remained behind, reviewing the operational plans one final time. The facility's layout, security systems, and likely defenses had been analyzed exhaustively. The assault strategy incorporated multiple contingencies and fallback positions. Every available advantage had been identified and integrated. Yet a sense of incompleteness nagged at him, some crucial element still missing from their approach. Not a tactical oversight, but something more fundamental. His contemplation was interrupted by the arrival of a messenger hawk bearing an unmarked scroll. The security protocols verified it contained no traps or tracking elements before Naruto broke the seal. The message inside was brief but chilling. The catalyst is not a what, but a who. Look to those closest to you for the final component of absolute perception. Some allies are unwitting vessels, others are deliberate plants. Trust selectively. A concerned observer, Naruto stared at the cryptic warning, its implications cascading through his mind. If accurate, it suggested someone within their operation, possibly within his core team, was either compromised or actively working with Kuroda. But who? And was the message itself a Kuroda ploy to sow distrust at a critical moment? As he considered his response, his newly refined future sight activated, showing him a vision more detailed and extended than any previous one. The coastal facility will be heavily defended, but not insurmountable. Their team will penetrate to the central chamber where the integration apparatus awaits. Kuroda will be there, not as an adversary but in a posture of calm expectation. Right on schedule, he'll say. The cornerstone and the catalyst. Delivered together as theorized. One of Naruto's trusted allies will step forward voluntarily, their expression shifting from determined to vacant. The final synchronization can now commence. They'll announce in a voice not quite their own. The vision ended without revealing which ally would betray them, leaving Naruto with the most difficult choice of his leadership. Proceed with the mission knowing betrayal awaited, or delay to investigate his closest associates and potentially lose their opportunity to stop Kuroda. In that moment of uncertainty, staring at the Anon, Waimo's warning while the echo of his incomplete vision faded, Naruto made the decision that would define not just tomorrow's battle, but his approach to leadership in all the challenges that would follow. The choice, like the women who had entered his life through this crisis, would change him in ways he couldn't yet fully comprehend. But it would be his choice, made with clear eyes, full awareness of the risks, and absolute commitment to protecting both the world he served and the people he had come to care for deeply. Dawn approached, bringing with it the culmination of their efforts against Kuroda and his absolute perception protocol. Whatever awaited at the coastal facility, victory, defeat, or betrayal, Naruto would face it alongside those who had become more important to him than he had ever anticipated. The final confrontation with Takashi Kuroda awaited, and with it, revelations that would transform everything they thought they understood about perception, reality, and the boundaries between worlds. Chapter 2 End.